It's Snowman's podcast. No one's ever going to do the intro because this show runs on no money. I'm Mike.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Vincent. It's alphabetical.
It's alphabetical. Hasn't changed.
All right. So this week we're talking about Mark of Cain and sort of some other stuff. It's all related though. It's not a 4-part story. We're talking about 4 issues, but it's all under the same umbrella. And we have one live viewer apparently, so shout out to them. If I can find the chat.
There's no chat. It's a made up.
They said first. Shout out to our live viewer. Thanks for watching.
Oh, hi, Tina.
Hope you get through this whole episode. All right, so we're talking about Batman number 567.
Why are you watching this live? Go do something else with your life.
734, Robin 67, and Batman Legends of the Dark Knight number 120. Yep. And Mike is going to careen us into the first issue.
All right, Mark Cain Part 1 and Batman 567, like Vince said. Kelly Puckett and Damian Scott on art here. I hope you like Batman's full heavy cape horns because they're very pronounced here on Damian Scott's Batman, which I've never really been a big fan of these, especially when they're this huge and big. They're pretty distracting to the eye. Other than that, I think Damian Scott's art is fine. We left kind of our last story with Two-Face coming into Batman's territory and killing everyone. So we see Batman just burying the dead as Batgirl looks on. And we then immediately just like straight full-on jump cut to Barbara Gordon Oracle, who's in her clock tower receiving an apple from this girl that we've never seen before as she's teaching her English. And then Gordon comes in and asks Gordon for help. And as she's leaving the clock tower, she's tailing Gordon and sees an assassin up in the kind of across the clock tower. And this dude's going to take out Gordon, but she stops it by running in front of the lens. And the assassin kind of jumps back for a second. And then as the rest of the GCPD spot him, they start shooting to try to take him out. Batman has Harvey Dent like tied up, and he's kind of torturing him by taking his coin and threatening that he's going to kill him for what he did to Batman's territory of killing all those innocent people. But then we jump right back to Babs and Gordon and this new girl she's trying to identify the shooter by drawing a picture, who Barbara Gordon identifies it as the Mark of Cain, who is a master assassin, David Cain. And it's revealed that David Cain is this girl's father. And of course, we've hinted at it for like the last 2 episodes. This is the introduction of Cassandra Cain, who would later go on to become Batgirl, but this is his first appearance. The rest of this issue, she kind of leaves fastly when they're trying to figure out what they want to do, with Gordon protecting the hit for David Cain because Two-Face ordered the hit. And we kind of, the rest of the issue is basically silent, except for sound effects, as we get Cass battling David Cain and it being juxtaposed with flashbacks of her in her youth being trained by David and how to be an assassin. And the issue leaves off with David Cain realizing that he can understand, that Cassandra can understand what she's saying, because Cassandra didn't know how to talk. She only knows violence. And the issue ends when she tackles David Cain out a window, to be continued in Detective Comics number 734. All right, it's the introduction to Cass. What do we think? I think it's a pretty good issue.
Yeah, I think this is great. We'll talk more in the next issue, but this arc I really enjoyed. Damian Scott's art, like you said, he does that weird thing with the like shoulder thing parts.
Shoulder horn.
Yeah, even with that, the silhouette looks really damn cool. But even without it, I really like the way he's playing with other parts of the costume and the cape. It's worth noting, in fact, through this entire reading, Cassandra does not get that first name.
No, I was
So
going to
that
say she does not get her name yet.
yeah, so that has to be coming up. And for a second when I opened this, and this wasn't that long ago, it was like 2 episodes ago, I didn't entirely understand why Bruce puts the Batgirl at fault for like the Two-Face stuff. From whatever I remember, it didn't seem like that clear cut and everything. Like she wasn't necessarily at fault. But yeah, everything here, I really liked it. I think the next issue is even more impressive, where like Damian Scott, I kind of just think of him as like the cartoony Robin artist, but I think he does some like really, really good storytelling in this arc.
It's a very much a visual story too, especially with the blood on Cassandra's hands, and the flashbacks and being in the present. It's very, very visual storytelling since there's no words there, and I think it communicates very well. Really, really effective. Which is surprising because I wouldn't have thought it would have been that effective that early on. Michael, have any thoughts on this issue?
Yeah, I really liked the. Yeah, I really liked the Cassandra Cain introduction. This is actually the first I've read of her character, so it's fitting that it's her first appearances. And yeah, the character's already intriguing, characterized. This a lot of good storytelling. The one thing that I was a little confused about was like when Batman just suddenly has Two-Face tied up in the apartment. We don't see how he kept him or anything. Then the next issue, he's spying on him, talking to this other guy about how they're going to assassinate Gordon, and I'm really sure was there and tied him up and let him prison system. But last we saw, he had some D-list villains run Blackgate or something. But did you guys pick up on something I missed as to what the significance of Batman's Two-Face dealings here was? Or
No, he just went after him because he wants to get back for what he did to all those people in Batman's territory. The whole point of it was to show that like Batman might be considering some different type of justice, even though he's not going to kill him. But it's left to the reader's imagination that maybe Batman is losing his mental edge just like Gordon is.
Yeah, it's just off panel, and I mean, I think it works fine.
Yeah.
We didn't necessarily have to see several pages of him apprehending Harvey.
yeah,
But
what confused me more
Batman
was how he's just large in the next issue.
Type to comics number 734.
Okay,
This cover is David Cain and Batman fighting with Batgirl in the background. This, once again, just destroy buildings as a theme is all about behind the covers. Batman is looking onward at the different villains that Two-Face has as he sees David Cain scaling the wall, and that's where he sees Cassandra jump out and tackle him. And so they're falling down while Batman uses the bat rope to like hoist them and back up. Once again, we get plays on the blood splatter on the hands. And Cain Cassandra like lets herself go from being held by David. So Batman kind of swoops down and gets her, and they meet up in the graveyard later. And that's just Batman just starts questioning what her connection to David Cain is, and that's where he finds out that she doesn't speak English, but she speaks she speaks like hand signs, but also is the way that she communicates. And he realizes that she learned from David Cain just like he did. It's revealed that David Cain was one of the people that taught Batman. And then also that Cassandra doesn't speak any English at all. And they kind of communicate through a fight. where Batman doesn't want to fight her, but he lays out for the symbols once again. She draws Cain's, he draws Two-Face, and they draw the connection that they're working together from that. And it's all juxtaposed with Bruce's flashbacks training with David Cain to now Cassandra doing the same moves that he was taught, and it all comes together with the move that rips out a dude's throat that Cassandra did as a little girl that was shown in the previous issue, which is why I wouldn't wait till mention it here. But Batman says, "Hey, you want to come with me? I can stop him, and I can stop all those types of people." As Batman walks away, and David Cain is set up to try to take another taking a hit out on Gordon, but Batman just kind of sneaks up right behind him. And Cassandra went and stopped Two-Face while Batman was doing that. So immediately, like, that's how Batman builds up the trust as he sees that she stopped Two-Face while Batman was fighting David Cain, and Cassandra Cain also just throws 2 bags of coins at them to stop them from fighting, which was interesting, as she took out Two-Face all on her own and stopped that issue. And then it ends with Batman and Cassandra Cain heading back to Barbara Gordon in the clock tower as Barbara Gordon shows her a picture of Batgirl saying, "Hey, this used to be me, and you saved me, and also you saved Batman. I want you to take this." And it ends with Batman telling Oracle to call them, which would mean it's time to call the Bat family, as it's time to get the gang back together. I like this a lot. It showed really good stuff with Cass here, just immediately showing that she's more than competent to try to take down a big villain like Two-Face, and she kind of beats Batman in a fight, which was another big kind of stepping stone. And then also like being able to also take out Batman and David Cain at the end builds up Cass really well here, and it's once again all visual since she doesn't talk. It goes to really strongly show how competent she is, but also it's such a different take on a way to introduce a character with her being mute that I think is a really interesting way to go about things. Really cool way to bring in the character like this.
Yeah, again, I was like, Damian Scott's storytelling in this issue, like, really impressed me.
Yeah, it's really good.
There's the stuff with Bruce and Cass in the graveyard, where it's paralleling Bruce and Cass, it's paralleling Bruce and David Cain, and it's paralleling Cass and David Cain when she was a little girl, and all 3 of those. And then even like you're occasionally, and then later on, you're occasionally going to Bruce and David Cain fighting, and there's a lot of like epic like panels where they're both like lunging at each other, and it's slightly silhouette and everything like that. And I just thought, like, on multiple pages and multiple levels, like, I was really impressed by this issue, just like the storytelling and the panels and layouts and everything. Yeah, and I think Cassandra comes off really well. This was a very quick introduction, obviously. I mean, she basically is first appearance and then joins the Bat family in 3 issues, which is interesting. I mean, obviously, I mean, technically that applies to a lot of characters. It's like, okay, Robin.
Well, that's the interesting aspect. Like, if you were to introduce this character today, it would probably be at least like probably a year's worth of storytelling till she's in that costume, and she's in it by the end of Legends of the Dark Knight, which is kind of insane.
And I think it's also interesting to note here that, I mean, David Cain, it's not like it's a huge deal because at this point Bruce Wayne has like 50 different people who taught him how to be Batman. But
right.
I mean, introducing David Cain as a one further person who trained Bruce Wayne and kind of set up the foundation for him to be Batman. At this point, especially, I feel like it's kind of a big deal. I mean, I was joking that there's a lot of them, but there's only like 4 to 5 people who trained.
Yeah, but it's really, with a character with an 80-year history like Batman, it is very interesting to note that they don't really delve too much into his training to become Batman. It's something that's been very little explored over the 80 years of his history, which I always find interesting. It's always either we get it's either we get Bruce as a kid or Bruce is already as Batman or just about to become Batman, and it's very much a gray area in that 7 years he spent mastering the arts in all kind of forms and areas. So it is kind of a weird. It's an area that gives writers and artists kind of free reign to play around with different things. I always felt. I mean, it's very interesting to me how there's just never been like a full out miniseries that showed Batman training. Maybe Batman Shaman was a little bit kind of like that, but really, like, you'd think there'd be like at least 1 or 2 prestige miniseries of like, this is how Batman learned to become Batman. But no, it's year one, and by year one, he's already trained. He's coming back to Gotham.
Don't give them any ideas.
Oh no, I'm not. Well, I mean, with the right writer and artist, I'm sure that would be a cool miniseries to see. But like, I'm not asking for it at all.
Yeah. And then the other thing I want to note here, and this is like
realization kind of makes me. Oh, sorry. Kind of makes me appreciate Batman Begins more now that like it was kind of delving into some unexplored territory, or something or other. But yeah, and I feel like if they tried to do something in comics now, they'd probably look at Batman Begins a little. May or may not work. Make sense. Well, probably involve Ra's al Ghul, but anyway, go ahead with what you were saying.
Yeah, I was gonna say if there's anything negative here, we cut back to the Two-Face stuff, and he's here with Tallyman, and they're about to execute more people. And I feel like, and again, this could be me not 100% remembering previous arcs, but I feel like this is kind of the super anticlimactic reveal that Tallyman is working for Two-Face. I mean, it was behind, like, it was not very hidden at all. We were very clear, and especially in the previous arcs, it was made pretty clear that Two-Face was the one that Jim Gordon was talking to. But I feel like we never got like a big reveal for Two-Face kind of behind the scenes on multiple angles. And it's just kind of, I think it's just kind of like revealed here with zero pomp and circumstance.
Yeah, a little bit. But it's something I feel like maybe you have to infer that for yourself. But I think that is a missed opportunity. I would agree with.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it doesn't bother me, and it doesn't detract from it. But it was just surprising to me, and I noticed. I was like, "Huh, that's weird." But that's that arc, and then I want to note that I guess chronologically, Young Justice special comes next, or maybe. But this will move into the second half of this episode where we have both.
Well,
Robin.
I would say it doesn't, because Robin conceivably by the time he gets back into Gotham, he ain't leaving Gotham.
Yeah,
so,
but Young Justice, the Young Justice special is before he's been called back. So in fact, Young Justice should take place before the end of Batman 567.
Right.
It could.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think we read it in the right order, because.
Yeah, I mean we did, but then this gets to the second half of this episode where we have Robin 67 and Legends of the Dark Knight 120. The DC's current trades put Legends of the Dark Knight first, but as we'll get into it, as far as I can tell, there's no way that can be correct, and I don't know why they did that. It could be DC being weird, or maybe my theory is that it's some combination of publication order and also like prioritizing the actual Batman issues. Who knows? But basically,
the reason I can infer from it that maybe it's like this is maybe due to the fact that Legends of the Dark Knight, when we get to it, opens up right at the end of Detective Comics. And for ease of reading, I can see that. Like, I wouldn't want to break that up maybe in the collection, but in no way do you have to read, like, the way I read this tonight is I read Legends after this, and then I read Robin. And really, you can read it in either order and be fine. It's not like breaking anything crucial, but that is an interesting to note, I will say.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's how comics work. You can just piece it together in your head, but chronologically, and this is maybe like the second or third instance where we've kind of had this nitpick come up. The DC's most recent complete comprehensive trades seem to have some issues as far as the reading order goes.
Well, I mean, we've already, yeah. It's, I mean, if you want to add that to the running tally, it's, I think, yeah, not a proper. The covers don't break up the issues. We have a page count that doesn't exist in the physical format. It's they're well put together books. I like the spine uniformity on all of them. I think they're well put together, but it's some basic bare bones things really should have been needed, especially where DC crops most of their books and does put a page number on the bottom.
Yep. All right, so moving into the actual content is, well, we're going to start out with Robin 67.
Okay, so Robin 67, the cover's by Jason Pearson. I think it's a pretty good cover. It's kind of cartoony, kind of ominous. It's Dick and Tim posing by the sign that says "Welcome to Gotham City," but death is written over it in red letters. I think we've seen a sign like that, except it said "Welcome to Hell" instead of death earlier in the story, and that makes a little more sense. Maybe I don't know. There's probably multiple Gotham City signs, but anyway, this story is called Way Dark, written by Chuck Dixon, penciled by Stas Johnson, and inked by Stan Woach. I think that's how you pronounce it. Anyway, we begin with a bunch of fellas in the sewers with makeshift weapons like they use in No Man's Land. They're saying, and they can hear someone coming, and they're saying they have to kill him if he doesn't eat them first. And we see who they're afraid of. It's this ominous looking lumpy silhouette, and we see that it's this really tricked out, heavily armed guy with a mohawk with a second head popping up behind his head. He's got like, there's this other guy's torso and head like strapped onto his back. I think they later say it's that guy's gearhead, I think, and he's someone else. I forget. Well, we'll come to it soon. But
he's Tommy.
Sorry,
he's Tommy Mangles, and we saw Gearhead. I don't know if you were on the show yet. You may not have been on that episode. We saw Gearhead very, very early.
I think I remember Gearhead. Yeah.
But he's back. I think
Yeah.
his whole thing is like he's
Mangles
some kind of
before.
No, Mangles has existed before, but I don't think we've seen him. He has very few appearances. He's like he's true like F-list villain.
Yeah, so he's carrying what's left of Gearhead on his back, Chewbacca and C-3PO style. They're kind of butting heads, but mostly agreeing. And they've formed a little symbiosis, I guess. We never see them like try to eat anyone in the issue. I don't know if they're being hyperbolic or if this guy's actually a cannibal. But so anyway, meanwhile, Nightwing and Robin are sneaking into Gotham because they've received the summons from Batman. And Tim says he busted a guy named Sly Fox and his gang, and he found these little cart sled looking things that they're going to use to travel through the tunnel. But it's an incomplete tunnel, and he explains the sort of humorous history later on of why it wasn't completed. Like they ended up tunneling under the financier's house, and he was bothered by the noise, so he made them change it. But that doesn't come up yet. So anyway, they start sledding down the sewer tunnels on these things, and Nightwing crashes going through a corner. Robin's very concerned. He's like, he actually seems to think he's dead at first, but then Nightwing's just hanging from the rafters, and he's like, "Oh, you should have seen your face." He's like, "Jerk." And that's probably the highlight of this issue for me. It's just the Robin Nightwing banter. I'm really liking those two as a team. They've got a lot of back and forth throughout this issue. Dick teasing Tim fairly often, and the two of them just cracking jokes at each other. So meanwhile, Mangles and Gearhead have found this supply stash for like like a nuclear stash for an Armageddon that didn't happen. And Mangles is really excited about the beans and their navy beans, which I guess is better than regular beans. I don't know. And we see some rats throughout this issue, and we very briefly see Ratcatcher talking to his rats, but he doesn't really do much in this issue. We're probably setting up for something down the line. We've seen Ratcatcher before in this arc, but he's just lurking in the sewers with his rats right now. And Dick and Tim have to crawl now through a really narrow tunnel, and Dick's teasing Tim about bugs and rats, and that leads to him saying, like, oh, I don't have any phobias. And Dick's like, we all have phobias. And Tim claims he hasn't found his. Dick says he has, but he doesn't say what it is. It seems like it's touched a nerve, maybe. And they get lost in the sewers. They hear a noise. They think it's just a rat, but then they're jumped by Mangles and Gearhead. They have a fight with them. And this fight goes on a little bit. The two of them are fighting him together. And eventually they just fall into a hole, the villains, and Nightwing makes a little quip about how, you're away long enough and you forget how weird this town is. Tim's like, now it's even weirder. Amen to that. And then they keep going to meet up with Batman. And the last thing we see is a rat watching them, probably just maybe teasing more Ratcatcher stuff or just highlighting that, oh, he's still out there. But yeah, this is a fun issue. I like the Dick and Tim banter. Sometimes the art was mostly pretty good. Some of the faces looked a little awkward, I thought, though, but maybe that's just his style. I don't know. And yeah, wasn't a huge fan of the villains. Like, we just didn't know much about them. They're just kind of random DF listers or whatever. They're just there for them to fight. The two-headed thing was kind of funny, but yeah. So not a particularly eventful issue. Mostly kind of how Dick and Tim get from point A to point B, and some fun banter along the way. So yeah, I'll open it up to you guys. What do you guys think of this issue?
I thought it was fun. I mean, Gearhead and Tommy Mangles, they're not supposed to be taken seriously in this context. It's really just character moments for Dick and Tim and getting them from point A to point B as we move from the end of Mark and Cain, the final panel, to the next issue, which again goes back to the reading order moaning. And Ratcatcher is here for like one page, but I'm already a little excited. I think Ratcatcher's hilarious, and he has this rat with like some kind of like eye pattern named Patch, who's like his little. At first, you think he's spying for him, but actually, Patch is just like there to witness it. And then Ratcatcher's like, "Oh, I haven't seen you in a while." So then he gets like brought back into the colony, I guess, and then is spying. I don't know, and that's very exciting. And it's very obvious, but I'll let everyone guess what the next Robin arc is going to be, and I'm very excited. And in fact, I implore our viewers, and after the show is done, my co-host, to look up the cover for Robin 68. It's by Jason Pearson, and it's Tim Drake just covered in rats, and they're like very darkly colored black, inked, and I think it's like in an odd way an amazing cover.
I agree with what Vince said. It really is just a character moment book for Tim and Dick, especially just to get them to point A to point B. I think it's fine. Not terrible at all. Perfectly fine issue between. Really enjoyed this. Just the Tim and Dick interactions you just don't get to really see anymore. So anytime they do team up, it is kind of fun how they have that. I mean, I mentioned it before. They have that big brother little brother relationship that's kind of forming around this time, and it really works just so well. So anytime to see them team up is really a delight. But I like Stas Johnson's art. He draws a very good Robin, draws a very good Nightwing. No problems from here. I love seeing the green eye slits when they're in their night vision on their masks. You don't see that anymore. It's a thing they used to do a lot, but yeah, this is fun and enjoyable for me across the board. Vince, bring us home.
Just one final nitpick: that page and a half of history was just entirely uninteresting to me. But you could take it or leave it on that.
I'll take it.
Okay, so Legends of the Dark Knight number 120, final issue for this episode. This is called Assembly by Greg Rucka and Mike Deodato. And from page 1, so here's the thing. We've talked about this before.
Oh boy.
When he first appeared on an issue, I like Deodato more or less, but from page 1, Deodato was already drawing Cass entirely differently. She's not to, I won't mince my words. She suddenly has like large breasts and is wearing a crop top with this tiny waist, and it's kind of crazy. But that's mostly just on Cass. Otherwise, I think Deodato actually has some really fun art in this issue. He does a lot of really cool stuff with Batman's cape, like multiple, like in so many different ways. There's a lot of stuff.
His ears are too long, though.
Yeah, sure, but like a lot of the cape stuff, that like there's moments where it's like, oh, like that's a Quesada, Kevin Nolan type thing, or Graham Nolan. That, that's a like one or two of these panels. I'm like, oh, that reminds me of Todd McFarlane. But yeah, so he gives the Bat family 24 hours to show up, and then goes to check on Gordon. And Bruce is still mad about how things went down with Two-Face. So he's basically just like, hey, I know you're hanging out with Two-Face, not a smart idea. And Gordon punches him. And, obviously Batman takes a hit to the face all the time. But there's some pretty good storytelling where it seems like Batman is hurt, but in an emotional sense. I thought that was handled really well. But that entire scene, it's just like completely counterbalanced by the other side of Deodato, where Sarah Essen is in the scene, and she's only actually in silhouette. We don't see her face or anything, just shadows, silhouette, and she's only on panel like twice. But each time, you can see that Deodato is basically just drawing her like a supermodel.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But finally, Azrael, Robin, and Nightwing show up in that order, and everyone's back. They're like, hey, what's up? And they get a brief introduction to this new girl who's suddenly hanging out in their lair with Oracle. But Bruce is like, hey, Dick, we're going to go do something. And there's like a slight like tension where it's like, why me? And like, why not everyone else? And I feel like that's not really addressed here. But they go and they find Batgirl. But obviously at this point we know, well, it's officially revealed here that this Batgirl this entire time has been Helena Bertinelli, the Huntress. And we know that she's been flipping between identities a tiny bit and stuff like that. And again, on the Deodato part, the first like page, like before, like right before Bruce and Dick essentially jump on her, she's just like hanging out, and Deodato draws like a super curvy Batgirl. And Bruce, of course, always knew that it was Helena. And again, I don't know why specifically Dick came along. Why not someone else? Why not multiple people? Who knows?
I think it's because she has a history of dealing with her. I think they were romantically linked partly at one point.
Yeah, so they had a mini series in '98, which is closer than other stuff at this point. This is like '99. I don't know if there was like romantic hints in that. But also Robin 3 was Cry of the Huntress. So Tim has a connection with Helena as well. Oracle has, well, it's not like Oracle would go with them. But whatever. I just thought that was slightly interesting. And it's not fully clear like what Bruce's game plan is here to me, because it seems for a second he like wants a mature conversation, because he's like, hey, if you act like this, if you keep messing up, you can't be part of this. It seems like he's kind of giving her some rope, but then Helena just totally crumbles and has an emotional meltdown. And she throws her cowl at Bruce, but then like walks away with the costume fully on. And so Bruce and Dick show back up, and Bruce's conclusion is that he thought he could get through this no man's land stuff alone, but he was wrong. He needs everyone. And also, this mute girl that I possibly barely just met is joining the crew after I literally just kicked out a very experienced member. But he says she's been training with Babs for 5 months. It's never clear to me how, like, where in those 5 months Bruce has met Cassandra. It may have been when we first saw them on panel with each other like 2 issues ago. And so everyone gets their assignments. Babs does the exact same thing she always does. She's running intel and everything. Robin is going to team up with Batman, which is exciting, on some mission in Robinson Park. I think that's going to be some Poison Ivy stuff. Nightwing is going to infiltrate Blackgate, which is literally he's going to like go undercover and like become part of the prison population and stuff. That's going to be exciting, and we're going to read Nightwing solo issues for the first time in a long time. And also, I think it's just Diodato, like, unfortunate art, but Dick seems kind of bummed about his mission. And then Azrael and this new character Cain are teaming up, which is interesting that Batman would put them together rather than like take her under his wing and throw Robin with Azrael, or just let everyone go solo. But the two of them are going to take down Nicholas Scratch, so that'll be in the next issues of Azrael. So this the Bat family is reunited, but also essentially we're expanding the line and the tie-ins, because as we split off here, we know that Nightwing's going to go into Nightwing, Batman's going to go into the Batman books, Azrael's going to do stuff. And we know, as I mentioned earlier, that Robin is going to have continued solo stuff. I believe some Catwoman stuff is going to start popping up again relatively soon. So we're seeing things a little bit expand out again. And as the issue ends, Cassandra Cain, again, still without officially the first name, gets a Batgirl suit and puts it on. And again, this goes back to my Huntress thing, where it's like, I guess there are multiple suits, which makes sense. And well, it kind of does, because when we're initially introduced to her, it seems like Helena made that Batgirl suit herself. So right. I guess Bruce stole her extra suit, or she gave an extra.
I thought I read it as she threw it at Bruce and Nightwing, and Bruce just took it.
No, she takes off her cowl and throws it, but then you can see, like, in the end of the scene, you can see her, like, she's still in costume, unless she has her Huntress costume underneath the Batgirl costume for some reason.
Maybe she commissioned Oracle to make a backup.
Yeah, that could be it. Yeah, but why would? But Babs would not have made a backup costume for Helena, because she didn't like Helena. But whatever, that's just minor stuff. And then we get
don't think too hard.
And then we get a really cool splash page. It's not even a page. I mean, this is surprisingly not gratuitous, especially since Diodato is kind of one of the more 90s artists that we've had in this entire show. But we get a splash of all the members of the Bat family now, minus Oracle, who's obviously in a wheelchair and off panel in the clock tower. All of them jumping through the air together.
It's notice what they say there, though. It's Nightwing points out that Cassandra looks better in the ears than Babs did, but Babs just goes, no, she looks better.
Yeah.
And then they jump out.
Yeah. I thought this was a great ending to the issue. and a great ending to this episode. Like we said, ultimately Mark of Cain is a 2-part arc, but besides the Robin, which is really acts more of as an interlude for those 2 characters, this was a very, very satisfying chunk of the saga. And I thought perfect introduction for Cass. And I mean, for what it's worth, also we talked about how he's adding threads to the Batman backstory and everything like that, but also like David Cain, pretty compelling villain / anti-hero off the bat, even considering he's basically just a gun merc dude. You know, he has no powers, no special costume, but he comes off really promising.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I thought this was perfect, or about as close to being perfect as you could possibly get. So, absolutely love this with the ending of fully kind of laying out the groundwork for everyone going off into the next books. I think it worked completely well.
Yep.
All right. Thanks for watching this episode. Go watch the other ones and tune into the next one, where we'll follow one of these threads. I think it might actually be the Azrael and Batgirl one.
It's Azrael and Batgirl we have next.
Yeah. So be on the lookout for that. Bye-bye.